This is meeting number 58 of the Standing Committee on International Trade. Today's meeting is taking place in a hybrid format pursuant to the House Order of June 23, 2022, and therefore members are attending in person in the room and remotely using the Zoom application. I'd like to make a few comments for the benefit of the witnesses and members. Please wait until I recognize you by name before speaking. When speaking, please speak slowly and clearly. For those participating by video conference, click on the microphone icon to activate your mic, and please mute yourself when you are not speaking. With regard to interpretation, for those on Zoom, you have the choice at the bottom of your screen of either Floor, English, or French. For those in the room, you can use the earpiece and select the desired channel. A reminder that all comments should be addressed through the chair. For members in the room, if you wish to speak, please raise your hand. For members on Zoom, please use the raise hand function. The clerk and I will manage the speaking order as best we can, and we appreciate your patience. Please also note during the meeting, it is not permitted to take pictures in the room or screenshots on Zoom. Should any technical challenges arise, please advise me. Please note that we may need to suspend a few minutes in order to ensure that all members get to participate fully. Today, we are meeting for clause-by-clause consideration of Bill C-282, an act to amend the Department of Foreign Affairs, Trade and Development Act, called Supply Management. I will now welcome the officials who are with us today to answer questions we may have during the clause-by-clause consideration. From the Department of Agricultural and Agri-Food, Tom Rossier, Assistant Deputy Minister, Market and Industry Services Branch. From the Department of Foreign Affairs, Trade and Development, Aaron Fowler, Associate Assistant Deputy Minister, Trade Policy and Negotiations. Stacy Paul Healy, Deputy Director, Tariffs and Market Access Law Division. And Doug Forsyth, Director General, Market Access. So thank you very much for joining us today. We will start our C-282, and I need to provide members of the committee with some instructions and a few comments on how the committee will proceed with the clause-by-clause consideration of Bill C-282. As the name indicates, this is an examination of all of the clauses in the order in which they appear in the bill. I will call each clause successively, and each clause is subject to debate and a vote. If there are amendments to the clause in question, I will recognize the member proposing it, who may explain it and speak to it. The amendment will then be open for further debate. When no further members wish to intervene, the amendment will be voted on. Amendments will be considered in the order in which they appear in the bill and in the package each member received from the clerk. Members should note that any new amendments must be submitted in writing to the clerk of the committee. The chair will go slowly to allow all members to fully follow the proceedings properly. Amendments have been given an alphabetic number in the top right corner to indicate which party submitted them. There is no need for a seconder to move an amendment. Once moved, you will need unanimous consent to withdraw it. During debate on an amendment, members are permitted to move sub-amendments. These sub-amendments must be submitted in writing. They do not require the approval of the mover of the amendment. Only one sub-amendment may be considered at a time, and that sub-amendment cannot be amended. When a sub-amendment is moved to an amendment, it is voted on first. Then another sub-amendment may be moved, or the committee may consider the main amendment and vote on it. Once every clause has been voted on, the committee will vote on the title and the bill itself, and if amendments are adopted, an order to reprint the bill may be required so that the House has a proper copy for use at report stage. Finally, the committee will have to order the chair to report the bill to the House. That report contains only the text of any adopted amendments as well as an indication of any deleted clauses. Right, so we will now move on to the clause-by-clause consideration. Right, Clause 1. Any discussion on Clause 1? Yes, it is.
Madam Chair, if I could. Oh, there we go. At this point, I would like to propose an amendment to Clause 1, and if I could read that for the benefit of everyone here. And it would read here that Bill C-282 in Clause 1 be amended by replacing lines 8 and 9 on page 1 with the following. So it would read, and functions set out in subsection 2, the minister may consider not making any commitment on behalf of the government. And that is the proposal that I would like to make, Madam Chair.
Okay, which is exactly what's before us in writing.
Right.
Yes, Mr. Seebeck.
Madam Chair, do I get an opportunity to speak to that right now? Or?
You can, you have the floor, so.
Yeah.
Madam Chair, and thank you for this opportunity, and thank you, and thank you to our witnesses for being here today. And as everyone knows, we've been looking at this legislation over the past couple of weeks with regards to supply management, and as we've all reiterated, I believe, and we can all say that we all support supply management and its existence in Canada to protect our domestic sectors. And in fact, as I mentioned last time, I dare say I was probably the only member of this committee that's actually worked for one of the supply managed sectors as a lobbyist during my time at Hill and Knowlton. We had as our client the Dairy Farmers of Ontario. So they were a client of mine, and I worked with them closely over a 5-year period. So I support supply management and what it means to our sector. But during, the hearings and listening to the testimony of the various stakeholder groups that had come out, I mean, there was a theme that you continued to hear, and it was always one of predictability and stability. And those that came from the supply managed sectors would talk about wanting this piece of legislation because of the predictability and the stability that it would provide. But yet those on non-supply managed sectors would also talk about that predictability and stability being put at risk because of the potential of what this legislation could mean if it was adopted by this government. So I've got great concerns. As I mentioned last time and during my testimony or my comments, is that, here as legislatures, we're here to try to make the best bill possible. And I'm trying to see if there was a better way that we can do to take a kind of a flawed bill and make it a little bit better. Because as we heard during the testimony, even the honourable member who sponsored the bill, he hadn't reached out to trade experts to seek their opinion on whether or not this bill would bring about some challenges and difficulties for Canada. He essentially said, well, it's essentially like Bill C-216 from the previous Parliament, and that, those comments were in the record, in the blues, as he said, and that we could simply go with that and take those comments. Well, I found some concerns because when I did that, I had the opportunity to read those blues, and some of the witnesses that are with us today spoke out against that piece of legislation, in June of 2021, and raised some of the concerns about it setting a dangerous precedent. And then when we're here examining this bill, those concerns are not as strong. So I just had those questions, and I thought, for example, that's why I believed it would have benefited us to actually have some opportunity to bring some trade experts in and hear their views. And I'm not going to read into testimony the comments of the previous bill and the comments of our witnesses who are all here today who made comments on Bill C-216, and I don't want to get into that, but I just do want to reiterate some of the concerns. I mean, one of the gentlemen that lives in my riding, he's been a retired now government employee. He had worked with the Competition Bureau, was here when supply management systems were established. And he came to me and raised his concerns about C-282. And he mentioned specifically, I believe everyone would have received a copy of a letter that he submitted today, and he talked about, the bill not being needed. And if I could quote, it says, "The bill is not needed to show support for supply management. As some have already suggested to the committee, Bill C-282 does not address supply management itself, but rather attempts to dictate Canada's approach to future trade agreements." And then he talks about, as a trading nation, Canada's success internationally has been the ability to be flexible in trade negotiations and adapt as needed to achieve an agreement good enough for all Canadians, including the supply management sector. It is undeniable that over the years and the multitude of success trade agreements negotiated around the world, Canada has earned a reputation as being a fair, knowledgeable, and respected negotiator. However, C-282 sends a concerning signal that Canada's trade negotiators no longer have the necessary discretion to discuss the supply management sector during future trade negotiations. In my view, this signal is not needed, and it will likely be perceived as a negative by the international trade community. If this bill becomes law, most trading partners will be looking for compensation in some form in return for honoring Canada's request to keep supply management off the table. So those are just some of the concerns, and I think that adequately kind of expresses some of the concern I have too with regards to this bill. Again, my hope here, sitting on this International Trade Committee, was to listen to the feedback and try to make this bill a little bit better for everyone, so that it could kind of address the concerns of all agricultural sectors. I mean, it's almost like the analogy of parents and a family. You don't love one child more than you do another, and I felt that was what was happening here. We had one sector asking for essentially special consideration over the views of others. So that is why I proposed this amendment here to kind of provide a little bit of more flexibility to the government as it moves forward. And I would table this for my colleagues' consideration.
Very much. I have Mr. Varani and then Mr. Seaback.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. I'll just note that it's, I've got a lot of respect for Mr. Baldinelli, I'll say that clearly and publicly, but I note it's with a lot of consistency that we hear pretty much every meeting strong affirmations about conservative support for the supply management sector. And yet in the same meetings, including right now, we have efforts to amend the bill to make it weaker and less supportive of that very same sector which the Conservatives purport to support. I would strongly indicate that if you inject discretionary language into lines 8 and 9 of clause 1, as Mr. Baldinelli's amendment does, it would effectively make supply management optional. And it would give the ability to any government going forward of any political stripe to effectively sacrifice our supply managed sectors. And that is not what we are seeking to do with this bill. I don't think that is what any party was seeking to do when it voted in favor of this bill at second reading. And I frankly find it a bit surprising that the Conservative Party, or at least Mr. Baldinelli, is attempting to do that very thing with this amendment. And I would just point out for clarification of the record for anyone at home who's watching House of Commons committees, that the notion of hearing at an additional meeting from further trade experts was mooted by Monsieur Savard Tremblay in a motion he formally presented at the last meeting, which I proposed to amend so that it would be crystal clear that we could spend one of the two meetings Monsieur Savard Tremblay proposed in hearing from further trade experts, exactly what Mr. Baldinelli just mentioned. The Conservative Party then filibustered the vote on that motion. So I find it a little bit less than ideal that they're raising that same issue, which they obstructed at the last meeting. I'll end my comments there. Liberals will be voting against CPC 1. Thank you.
Seaback.
Well, it's great that the parliamentary secretary can tell all of his members how they're going to be voting on this in advance of their consideration of it. But I guess that's how things work in the Liberal Party. I quite frankly find it exhausting listening to a member from Toronto tell members of this committee that they don't care about supply management. I spent the 2-week break visiting dairy farms and other farms in my riding, of which I have hundreds, and explained to them the concerns we have with this bill. And everyone there was understanding, including the dairy farmers that I spoke to. So I'll take no lessons from Mr. Varani from a downtown Toronto riding telling me about whether or not I support supply management. I support it by the fact that I visit the farms in my riding often to discuss what the issues are. With respect to this amendment, it actually enshrines what our long-standing policy in this country has been, a policy that the Liberal Party actually used when they negotiated CPTPP and granted access to the supply managed sector. They're the ones who did it, Madam Chair, and they did it because they had to. If there was no access to supply management, there was no deal on CPTPP. So what the Liberals are now saying is that somehow by passing this, they'll still be able to sign trade agreements. Well, Madam Chair, the only way they're going to do that is if no other country in the world that we enter into a trade agreement with has interest in any of our supply managed sectors. I'm not an expert on the economy of every country in the world, but I suspect that's not the case. And what Mr. Varani effectively is saying is we will then not have those kind of trade agreements, or they'll be less ambitious. Or perhaps, Madam Chair, what they'll do is, when they bring forward enabling legislation, they will just repeal 282 so they can give away access in the supply managed sector. So I find all of his comments ironic. This is a well-thought-out amendment by Mr. Baldinelli. I'll be voting in favour of it, and my Conservative colleagues, because we live in a democracy, will have the choice on how they're going to vote.
Mr. Tremblay, please.
Alors, j'apprends.
There is no party line here, but that's something new. My point would be that I fear that with this amendment, where we talk about making the minister may consider not making any commitment on behalf of the government, so it would simply take away all the teeth from the bill, the opportunity for the minister to take action, and it's opening the door here. What about verbal commitments in favor of supply management? Well, that's what's being said verbally. But then there's this amendment that simply takes all the substance out of the bill.
Thank you very much. Any further discussion? Yes, Mr. Area.
Madam Chair, again, I want to reiterate that Canada, as a trading nation, with 60 to 65% of our GDP coming from trade, I think as legislatures, we have the responsibility to consider what is good for Canada. Sometimes, we do politics. Sometimes we vote on support bills, legislations, and take actions based on political consideration. But this bill, when it becomes a legislation, it is not going to be in the interest of Canada. And knowingly, we are shooting ourselves in the foot. Knowingly, we are creating problems for our future international trade agreements. Knowingly, we are saying, like as one witness put it, we are setting up one farmer against the other, one neighbors against the other in the rural Canada. And 90% of the exporters of agriculture products, agri-food exporters, they have vehemently come out against this bill. I think as elected members of parliament sitting here to uphold the best interest of all Canadians, we have to seriously look into the consequences of the decision we are making today in voting this bill. That's all I have to say at this stage, Madam Speaker.
Very much. Not seeing any further discussion. Just for the information of the committee, if CPC 1 is adopted, CPC 2 and Lib 1 cannot be moved due to a line conflict. Okay? If CPC 1 is adopted, which is Mr. Baldinelli's motion, is adopted, CPC 2 and Lib 1 cannot be moved due to a conflict in the lines. Once a line of a clause has been amended by the committee, it cannot be further amended by a subsequent amendment, as a given line may be amended only once. All right? And I'm going to ask for a recorded vote. Madam Chair? Clerk?
Okay, on CPC 1, Mr. Arya,
Yes.
Ms. Dillon? No. Mr. Meow?
Against.
Mr. Sheehan? No. Mr. Varani?
No.
Mr. Baldinelli?
Yes.
Mr. Carey?
Yes.
Monsieur Martel?
No.
Mr. Seebeck?
Yes.
Monsieur Savard-Tremblay?
No.
Mr. Cannings?
No.
Yeas pour 4, nays contre 7.
4 pour, 7 contre. La motion ou l'amendement n'est pas adopté. Maintenant, CPC 2. Le projet de loi C-282 modifie la loi sur le ministère des Affaires étrangères. Souhaitez-vous proposer le CP2, M. Seebeck? Tout le monde a une copie. Dois-je le lire ou passer au débat? Je pense que nous pouvons passer au débat, à moins que quelqu'un souhaite lecture. Les témoins souhaitent-ils que M. Seebeck fasse lecture de CPC 2?
I think we're okay, Madam Chair.
Our witnesses.
Until they're moved.
Oh, they don't have it until they're moved. Okay. Mr. Seebeck, are you moving CPC 2?
I am moving CPC 2.
All right, thank you very much. All right, our translation issue is all right? Okay. So I need to now make a ruling on CPC 2. Thank you for moving it. C-282 amends the Department of Foreign Affairs Trade and Development Act to restrict the Minister of Foreign Affairs from making certain commitments with respect to international trade regarding tariffs and the tariff rate quota for certain goods. The amendment seeks to institute a compensatory regime that would be applicable to anyone affected by international trade. And as House of Commons Procedure and Practice, 3rd edition states on 770, an amendment to a bill that was referred to a committee after second reading is out of order if it is beyond the scope and principle of the bill. So it is my opinion, Mr. Seebeck, that the bill is inadmissible.
Madam Chair, I'm going to challenge the chair's ruling on that.
Okay? Yes, we will need
So
to
the
have a
vote
vote on
is, shall the decision of the chair be sustained?
And the decision of the chair was that it's not admissible.
Mr. Arya? No. Ms. Dillon?
Yes.
Mr. Meow?
Yes.
Mr. Sheehan? Mr. Varani?
Yes.
Mr. Baldinelli?
No.
Mr. Carey?
No.
Monsieur Martel?
Abstention.
Mr. Seebeck?
No.
Monsieur Savard-Tremblay?
Oui.
Mr. Cannings?
Yes.
Yeas pour 6, nays contre 4.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, and Lib 1. Mr. Arya?
Madam Chair, I move that Bill C-282 in Clause 1 be amended by replacing line 9 on page 1 with the following. Give due consideration to the net benefit to Canada before making any commitment on behalf of the government. And Madam Chair, as I said earlier, I will make it very brief. I will not be very long. This bill is a problem for not only during the negotiations of any future trade agreements, but in my view, it will start affecting Canada negatively even before certain agreements come for negotiation. Currently, there are free trade agreement negotiated with India, Indonesia, and several other countries, if I am not wrong. The negotiators of the countries who are negotiating with Canada may use this bill as a tool to demand concessions or to prevent themselves offering any concessions that Canada desires. As I mentioned earlier, it is our responsibility as elected members of parliament to look at what is in the best interest of Canada, not on our immediate political interest, partisanship. And just because the supply management is well entrenched, they are quite vocal, they are very organized. Just to be under the pressure of this small group of farmers, support a bill which actually goes against the interest of most of the farmers in the country.
Thank you very much, Mr. Arya. I need to make a ruling on your proposed amendment. And Bill C-282 amends the Department of Foreign Affairs Trade and Development Act to restrict the Minister of Foreign Affairs from making certain commitments with respect to international trade regarding tariffs and the tariff rate quota for certain goods. The amendment seeks to remove these restrictions. Again, as the House of Commons Procedure and Practice, third edition on page 770, an amendment to a bill that was referred to a committee after second reading is out of order if it is beyond the scope and the principle of the bill. And as such, there is no debate. The bill, I'm moving the Liberal one, is out of order, inadmissible. Right?
I'm challenging that ruling.
Okay.
And the question again is, shall the decision of the chair be sustained? So, Mr. Arya?
No.
Ms. Dillon?
Yes.
Mr. Wilson, or Mr. Miao?
Yes.
Mr. Sheehan?
Yes.
Mr. Varani?
Yes.
Mr. Baldinelli?
No.
Mr. Carey?
No.
Monsieur Martel?
Oui.
Mr. Seebeck?
No.
Monsieur Savard-Tremblay?
Oui.
Mr. Cannings?
Yes.
Yeas pour 7, nays contre 4.
Right. Thank you. We will now move to CPC 3.
I'm not going to move CP3, Madam Chair.
All right. Is anyone else moving it? No. All right. Then we have CPC 4.
I'm sorry, Madam Chair, I just missed that. Was CPC 3 withdrawn?
Yes.
Okay. Now we have CPC 4.
Yes. Thank you, Madam Chair. So what this amendment seeks to, so we've heard a testimony here that this bill seeks to entrench Canada's position, which is to not negotiate away access to supply management. But what we've also heard is that's Canada's position unless they needed to grant access to supply managed sectors in order to sign to conclude a trade agreement. We heard that from government officials with respect to the renewal of USMCA. If dairy was off the table, would that have been renewed? The answer was somewhere along the lines of highly unlikely, something to that. I think the same thing would be said for CPTPP. If there was not some access granted to supply management sector, then CPTPP would not have been concluded. So what this amendment does is actually codify what Canada's policy is, which is that we will not negotiate on supply management unless we absolutely have no other choice. So that's what this amendment seeks to do. And we heard extensively from stakeholders about their concerns with the absolute nature of this particular bill. Tree of Life suggested that if this bill becomes law, it will remove the ability of Canada's trade negotiators to properly assess the costs and benefits of potential trade-offs in the context of negotiations, as well as run the risk of damaging our relationship with our valued trading partners. The Canadian Canola Growers Association have said, if passed, Canada's attractiveness as an FTA partner would diminish, adversely impacting Canada's ability to launch and enter into new negotiations. Canada's leverage in successfully renewing CUSMA under President Trump or negotiating membership to and conclusion of CPTPP would have been greatly diminished if such a bill were in place.
Okay, Mr. Seebeck, I'm sorry. The process is you move CPC 4.
Yes.
And if it's before us appropriately, then we would have a debate and discussion on it. But I have to make a ruling on it.
So how was
and
one in and all the others out? I think we're entitled to an explanation of that because I find this deeply troubling. One is like CPC 1 is not. It is. CPC 4 is not so divergent from CPC 1 that they are inadmissible. What's the actual explanation? I find this incredibly disappointing.
We have very specific rules in the House of Commons Procedures and Practice, 3rd edition, and it states on page 770 that an amendment to a bill that was referred to committee after second reading is out of order if it is beyond the scope and principle of the bill.
And why is it beyond the scope?
Because
What's the
it's
determination? What's the explanation? We're entitled to that.
Circumventing the restrictions set out in the bill is contrary to the principle of the bill. That is the reason that it is inadmissible.
Let's see how that's different from CPC 1.
Oh, sorry, that it is. All right. So I'm ruling CPC 4 is inadmissible. All right. So we then go on to new clause 2. Correct?
No, I'm challenging the chair.
Oh, we still have to, hold on, we still have to vote on clause 1.
No, I'm challenging the chair.
Okay, that's fine. That's your right to do that.
So shall the chair's ruling be sustained? Mr. Arya.
Abstain.
Ms. Dillon. Mr. Meow.
Yes.
Mr. Sheehan.
Yes.
Mr. Varani.
Yes.
Mr. Baldinelli.
No.
Mr. Carey.
No.
Monsieur Martel.
No.
Mr. Seebeck.
No.
Monsieur Savard-Tremblay.
Oui.
Mr. Cannings.
Yes.
Yeas pour 6, nays contre 4.
Thank you. So now is it shall clause 1 carry? All right, but there's nothing to it. Okay. All right, shall clause 1 carry? Recorded vote, please.
So, Mr. Arya?
No.
Ms. Dillon? Mr. Meow?
Yes.
Mr. Sheehan? Mr. Varani?
Yes.
Mr. Baldinelli?
No.
Mr. Carey?
No.
Monsieur Martel?
No.
Mr. Seebeck?
No.
Monsieur Savard-Tremblay?
Oui.
Mr. Cannings?
Yes.
Yeas pour 6, nays contre 5.
Thank you very much. New clause 2, which is CPC 5. If someone would like to move CPC 5.
I'm not moving any further amendments.
Okay, that's fine. Okay. Not seeing anyone moving CPC 5. It's withdrawn. Then we have CPC 6. Is it being withdrawn?
Nope.
Okay.
Nope, I'd like to.
There's no point.
CPC,
Probably out of order.
Yeah. I'd like to, Madame.
You'd like to move CPC 6?
I would, yeah.
Yes, that's fine.
Madam Chair,
And it is in order.
yes. I think we all realize that we're in a minority situation, and there are certain agreements that are presently underway, and this is a huge change in policy. So I think it's really important for our trade partners and trust for Canada internationally that we would have some type of transitional understanding of that agreements that are underway aren't going to be affected by this, Madam Chair. And we do have a precedent for this. You remember the original TPP, which was negotiated, and under that negotiation, there was a certain piece of supply management. I forget, I think it was 3% access. The original TPP also included the United States. It was Mr. Obama's deal. So it would have been that set percentage. The Liberal government at the time, the Prime Minister decided not to sign that, came up with the new comprehensive TPP. But then we had to renegotiate CUSMA, and then another 3% was given away. So I understand we had a lot of witnesses that were very mistrustful of governments in general because they had a deal and then basically they lost because the government of the day decided to trade away more. So this is kind of the argument. Mr. Seebeck with the First Amendment talked about it. So I think we should have a reasonable transitional provision in this bill if we're going to move forward with it so that our trading partners know that there will be some certainty and Canada's word at the negotiating table won't change.
Very much. Any further discussion on CPC 6?
Madam Chair, my hand was raised.
Mr. Varani, I'm sorry, I don't always see your hand up there.
No, it's okay. That's fine. Thank you, Madam Chair. I would just simply say that the promise to protect supply management has been made and articulated, and I think all this statute is doing, this very short private members bill, is entrenching what is already the policy of the Government of Canada, and there's no reason for enacting a transitional provision because the policy is effectively already operative. This is just formalizing what is already operative in terms of the Canadian government's policies. So I wouldn't see any need to enact CPC 6. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Not seeing any further discussion. Madam Clerk, would you please call the vote?
So the vote on CPC 6. Mr. Arya.
Yes.
Ms. Dillon. No. Mr. Miao.
No.
Mr. Sheehan. No. Mr. Varani.
I would vote no.
Mr. Baldinelli.
Yes.
Mr. Carey.
Yes.
Monsieur Martel.
Abstention.
Mr. Seebeck.
Yes.
Monsieur Savard-Tremblay.
Nope.
Mr. Cannings.
No.
Yeas pour 4, nays contre 6.
Does not carry. All right. Shall the title of the bill carry?
Would you like a recorded decision?
That's good. Okay, do we need a vote on it?
Yes.
Yes, please, have a vote
Okay.
on it.
Voting on the title. Mr. Arya.
It's the title. This is shall the title carry?
Ms. Dillon. Mr. Miao.
Yes.
Mr. Sheehan. Mr. Varani.
Yes.
Mr. Baldinelli.
No.
Mr. Carey?
No.
Monsieur Martel?
Oui.
Mr. Seaback?
No.
Monsieur Savard-Tremblay?
Oui.
Mr. Cannings?
Yes.
Yeas pour 8, nays contre 3.
Okay, thank you. Shall the bill carry? A recorded vote, please.
Mr. Arya? No. Ms. Dillon? Yes. Mr. Meow?
Yes.
I tried to trick you.
Mr. Sheehan? Yes. Mr. Varani?
Yes.
Mr. Baldinelli? Mr. Carey?
No.
Monsieur Martel?
Yes.
Mr. Seaback?
No.
Monsieur Savard-Tremblay?
Oui.
Mr. Cannings?
Yes.
Yeas pour 7, nays contre 3.
Shall the chair report the bill to the House? A recorded vote, please.
Mr. Arya? Ms. Dillon? Mr. Meow?
Yes.
Mr. Sheehan? Mr. Varani?
Yes.
Mr. Baldinelli?
No.
Mr. Carey?
No.
Monsieur Martel? Mr. Seaback?
No.
Monsieur Savard-Tremblay?
Oui.
Mr. Cannings?
Yes.
Yeas pour 7, nays contre 4.
Okay. Well, thank you all very much. That concludes the clause by clause on 282. I will report it to the House as directed by the committee. Right? So just for the information of the committee, on Monday we will be returning to the IRA and the discussion about the Washington travel. And on Thursday, we will start on the non-tariffs barrier, which is a motion from Mr. Seaback. All right? Everybody's good with that? Okay. Move adjournment.